When you think of coast, what comes to mind? For many people, it's a place of beauty, a place to recreate, to enjoy, and to create lasting memories. Our coasts are dynamic places, landscapes of constant change, shifting with the winds, seasons, and tides. These beloved places are also on the front lines for many of the impacts of climate change.
Today, the trustees care and protect for more than 120 miles of coast, including publicly accessible shorelines, barrier beaches, and coastal banks. As stewards of these coastal properties, we are really concerned about the accelerating impacts of climate change. These changes include increased flooding events, erosion, impacts on access and habitats, and even loss of beach and dunes. As the largest private landowner protected coastal property in the state, the trustees is working to assess these vulnerabilities and to determine the path forward to preserve and protect these special places for future generations to enjoy.
Peter Pinciaro, the trustee's general manager for the Crane Estate in Ipswich, was just 13 when he first landed on Crane Beach almost a half-century ago, on a fishing expedition with his father. Upstream, through the salt marsh, stood a massive rock. It was a place Pinciaro would return to over and over again through the years to fish for stripers. For Pinciaro and anyone else lucky enough to experience the wildness of this property, memories like his are timeless. Unlike the peat that once anchored the rock. It stands free now, separated from the land by erosion, a symbol of all the challenges threatening this vulnerable landscape in the face of climate change.
Crane Beach has changed dramatically over the years. It's a landscape that's in constant motion. So whether it's the surf, the grasses blowing in the wind, the swallow migration in the late summer, it changes minute by minute. And it's a resilient environment. Crane Beach has really survived the natural forces for thousands of years. If you think about the power of nature that it endures and the tenacity of the resources, the plants that are found here, it's really quite remarkable. And I think it's inspirational for our visitors. We've done a great job separating our visitors from the resource. We've protected the endangered piping plovers in a very successful shorebird program that includes terns and plovers. And our visitors, their attitudes have changed rather dramatically over the years, and they've really become as passionate as the staff and the organization is around resource protection here at Crane, and it's reflected in their behaviors. I have high hopes for the future of the Crane Estate. I'm really quite confident that under the trustees' care, that it'll be here for many generations to come. I am alarmed at the level of change that we're seeing on an annual basis, but I'm confident that our work will result in continued access for the public, continued protection of the really fragile resources that exist here, so I really can't see a time when visitors wouldn't be able to continue to enjoy the resource.
7 miles offshore from Cape Cod, the trustees cares for 7 properties on Martha's Vineyard, including Waysquee and Norton Point Beach, 2 beloved coastal landscapes that are experiencing accelerated change, including increased wave energy, more frequent flooding events, erosion, and loss of beach. For Sam Hart, resident and trustees director of Islands, these changes hit close to home.
My family goes back many generations. In fact, my son is a 13th generation Islander. As a child, I would have said it was a very boring place to grow up, not a lot going on. But as an adult, looking back, I can tell you that it was an incredible experience. Our babysitter was really nature, and so my parents would open the door and just say, "Come back at dinner," and we would go out and we would explore these special places. The changes I have witnessed to these properties has been extreme. Just to my left right here, there used to be an 800-foot dune that is completely gone now. It was obliterated in a storm 5 years ago. That's just one small example. Where we're standing in particular, we are developing a plan to do a full dune restoration and to relocate some of our oversand vehicle trails. We are doing other interventions, whether it's dune grass planting, whether it's managed retreat. Some places we can't save, and so we need to retreat and do so in a way that's sensitive to the environment and to the community.
Historic photos are helpful to show what is possible and provide a wider perspective that stretches beyond people's memories to illustrate these changes that have come before us. However, more and more, they are happening right before our eyes. Recent storms have swallowed up hundreds of feet of beach, eroded banks, and threatened homes. Chris Kennedy, longtime Trustees employee and Martha's Vineyard resident, has had a front row seat for many of these dramatic events.
So we're standing at Wasque Point. This is an area of tremendous change for not only the trustees, but also for the island. This is an area that perhaps 5 years ago, where we're standing right now, was underwater. And here, as you look around, you can see there are acres and acres of beach grass, beach sand, but probably the most significant change that we've seen here has been the amount of coastal erosion that we've had, much of it as a result of that breach that occurred in Norton Point. Back in April of 2007, we had a large spring storm that punched a hole right in Norton Point. So it opened up that beach and it precluded any sort of access across the beach. There have been a number of individual storms, but it's been that constant impact of these repeatedly large storms together. Just the frequency has really not allowed the Barrier Beach to recover the way that it was once able to. One of the things that I think is really important to note is in cases of major erosion, we don't armor our coastal banks. We don't armor the beaches. We allow nature to take its course. In this case behind me, you can see the results of this. All right, so we had hundreds of pine trees that fell off the cliff, but what happens when they fell off the cliff? They acted almost as a natural barrier to the energy of the waves as they crashed to the base. And so these cliffs had much better protection than those areas where people had mowed and removed the trees right to the edge of the cliff. They got a wonderful view of the ocean, but what they lost was this natural protection that you can see behind me. While we used to think in terms of you build permanent structures, all right, you might put a bathhouse on the beach, or you may build massive wooden stairs that were beautiful. We've learned that that is the worst thing you can do in this kind of an environment that is constantly changing. Instead of massive wooden stairs, we have aluminum stairs that are modular, that can be removed easily in the course of a day if necessary. We use roll-up boardwalks now that can easily be moved, removed, and protected if we have a major storm. I think we all need to understand that climate change is here. It's real. It's happening, and it has a long-term impact on the beaches that we all love and enjoy. And so we need to start thinking in terms of longer-term changes and adaptability. And for our residents and our neighbors, that's really a tough concept for them to understand. Because again, they're worried about what's going to happen to my home, what's going to happen to the road that I use to access my home. And so they really need to start thinking about, are there changes we can make today that will impact us and benefit us long term?
These coastal places hold memories for many of us. For some of us, they are home. For others, our livelihood. And even for those who do not live in close proximity, our sandy shores are the front lines for many accelerating climate impacts, serving as barriers to flooding events and protecting the communities, businesses, and areas of cultural and historic significance that lie behind and beyond. Now is the time to make choices of where to protect, where to accommodate change, what to relocate, or where to accept change without action, intervening where we can to help nature do what it was designed to do, to buy time and sustain the values we care about. The trustees are working to act, considering short-term versus long-term strategies based on the best available coastal data and science.
So the trustees wanted to look into the future and understand what our vulnerabilities were at our coastal properties. And to do that, we worked with Woods Hole Group, and they used some of the most latest flooding and storm and climate models to predict what would happen in places in 2030 and the year 2070. And so what we found was areas that would be flooded in the future from different storm events, but also from sort of chronic daily tidal flooding from sea level rise. The coastal resilience projects really are a priority for the trustees, and largely because we have a lot of values at stake, and if we don't act, we will lose those. Here at Crane Beach in the Crane Estate, we're looking to basically raise Argilla Road, which is the only access to Crane Beach for over 350,000 people every year. What we're hoping to do there is raise the road at least 2.5 to 3 feet to allow for 50 years of sea level rise and still ensuring access. We have a real opportunity right now in time to see what's coming in terms of climate impacts to our coast and make smart choices. And I think we can make choices that really help us adapt and help these places become more resilient so that we buy time, even for the next generation, the next 2 generations. So I think there is hope, and I think the work that we're doing today is going to help provide examples for the future.